observed. So it does make sense that you actually have a lot of extraterrestrial bases being based deep under the water. And also another factor here is that it kind of frees them from the kind of the international politics of our planet, because when you think about it, no nation has exclusive rights to the bottom of the oceans. I mean, you have kind of like the territorial limit, like the nations of the planet have like 200 miles exclusive kind of economic jurisdiction around their continents. They have 12 miles where they can actually control the bottom of the ocean. But when you get into the deep sea in the middle of the Pacific and so forth, no nation has exclusive territorial jurisdiction or sovereignty over the bottom of the oceans. And so that kind of like makes it a lot easier for extraterrestrials to base their facilities deep underwater, because simply it's not part of the surface politics. And in the future, as we begin to learn of the extraterrestrial presence, then we're going to find out that some of these deep underwater bases have been there for centuries or thousands of years. So in a sense, they do have that kind of a sovereign presence on the planet. And so we would actually in the future have to have some kind of new international body where we have representatives of extraterrestrials who have been residing on the Earth for centuries or thousands of years.
Now spontaneously something comes up, the day the Earth stood still, because I'm thinking while hearing you saying something very important, this means that for a lot of years or maybe centuries, some ET species might have been living here for a long time, not even visiting Earth on a long-term basis or for special projects or whatever you want to call it, or just to make contact for whatever reason, but just living here longer than maybe even mankind. And immediately I got in my mind's eye this actor, who's he called from The Matrix? Well, you know him as well as I do. From yes, the day the Earth stood still, he was this ET, and he was telling us, what are you doing on our planet? Well, it's not your planet. Well, that movie, of course, and you know Hollywood is a lot of disinformation and a false flag event on a mind control kind of level of trying to subconsciously imprint kind of thought patterns which have a certain outcome, as David Icke would say, problem, reaction, solution. But then again, if I hear in this movie that there's one person who's telling the Earth, well, it's not your planet, it's ours, and I'm going to do with whatever I like, then I think, okay, and maybe this is an important question, I'm not sure if this has been asked a lot of time, because I just got it out of my head actually. What about the ETs themselves? I mean, now we have these exopolitical questions, and we are relating how to handle politics on a global scale and world peace on a global scale. We can't even manage with our own kind. Now we have to do it with a lot of diversity in ET species. But how do the ET species regard this planet? Would we become their masters? Or they become our masters? Are we their puppets or slaves? Or do the majority of the extraterrestrial visitors, or actually the inhabitants of this planet for a long period, really want peace? And why now? Why is this time so important for them to come together? Is it our initiative to bring about disclosure, or is it the ET's initiative to bring disclosure to the world as well?
There's a lot of good questions there. As far as different kind of sovereign entities, ET groups that I think would actually become part of a future global politics when extraterrestrial life is acknowledged openly, I think we have two sets that are really important. You know, one are the reptilians. There appears, based on very different sources, that there appear to have been various underground civilizations that are populated by these reptilian humanoids who have developed separately to surface humanity for thousands of years. So they seem to be an indigenous sovereign species of the planet Earth. So immediately there you would have a big change to international politics once it's recognized that we actually have an indigenous reptilian humanoid species that have been living underground or in a slightly different dimensional phase to surface humanity for thousands and thousands of years. That they may have been back here, they may have been here from the very beginning. Then you have another group which are called the kind of remnants of these ancient Lemurians or Atlanteans, whatever you want to call it, who also developed some deep underground civilizations that have flourished for thousands and thousands of years, who have separated themselves from surface humanity because they kind of like retreated to the underground because it would be much safer for them, that they could preserve the sacred knowledge, the technology that they had developed during their civilization when it was flourishing, and protect it from being corrupted, because our surface humanity for the last 6,000 years of recorded history, as you well know, is basically nothing less than brutal, barbarous tribal warfare. So if there was a more advanced pocket of humanoids from these earlier civilizations that withdrew underground, it's quite clear that they would want to keep themselves separate to surface humanity until surface humanity had achieved a certain level of kind of peacefulness and coherence, so that then they could openly come to the surface and share their incredible wisdom and technology. And the final group, of course, and we just mentioned that, was those bases that exist at the bottom of the oceans. And, you know, who knows how many different civilizations exist at the bottom of the oceans. And they would also be sovereign entities because they would have been here for thousands of years as well. So they have as much right as anyone else to be involved in the creation of a kind of new global international body politic.
Okay, well, one other thing which doesn't come up in my mind right now, the other question just did, but I wrote this one down because I think it's so important, and also for not just for me personally, to be honest, but also for a lot of listeners, I assume, is the actuality of the proof and the reliability of the witnesses, which of course, as you know, is always a problem. And if you have a reliable witness, well, what's proof? What's evidence? Is it scientific? Is it hearsay? Is it information? Is it reliable? Is it disinformation? If it was disinformation, people could even use it and extract it 99% of the truth and 1% change of that truth, and it becomes a 200% big lie. So that's a problem with this minefield of ufology and ET research. How do you relate? Because, and I'm not going to go into that any depth because I think it's too negative, but I just found some stuff about Robert Hastings and Dr. Bojan, and it's a lot of criticism on your work, but then again, I see criticism on Stephen Greer's work, I see criticism on their work, so it's a lot of he said, she said, so I'm not even going to name it, but of course you know this criticism is there, and what I find out, it's especially criticism related to reliability of the witnesses, because some people are saying this, come on, this guy isn't reliable, and you know it, and the other is saying you are using this for that kind of perspective. So that's a big problem, the reliability of witnesses, because in my perspective, if I look at the evidence, and as a neuropsychologist, I'm looking in a very scientific way, well, to try at least, and then it feels as if it's just all claims, and that's the hard thing I have with this problem, because if I don't experience it myself, and I think this will be the truth for a lot of people, seeing is believing, unfortunately for a lot of things relating to consciousness, of course, but in this case, as Mr. Greer says, the truth hides itself. Well, that's great, but is it the truth? Do we know it's real? I can understand a lot of people, and mankind in general, has a very big problem with even proof which is being put in front of their nose because they can't believe it, so the truth hides itself. But then again, it might as well just not be true. So this is a very hard thing. What's your view on reliability of evidence and the whistleblowers, on the secret agreements with extraterrestrial life, and even the proof of there being an extraterrestrial life, an ET presence?
Well, that question of witness reliability is a very important one, and it's